All right, viewers, those were the headlines and our top focus this hour. We're now learning that thousands of demonstrators are protesting across Israel, seeking to push the Israeli government to end the war in Gaza and strike a deal for the return of the hostages. Now, according to reports, protesters chanted, waved flags and carried placards with pictures of hostages held in Gaza. Let's in fact listen in to what some of the protesters had to say.
I'm here first and foremost to protest and to call for the government to make a deal and bring all of the hostages home and to end the war. This is what we need to do, and this is why I'm here.
For me, it's like an ongoing of war. It's always been something going on. And but this one in particular is like meaningless. It started somewhere and then it forgot its target and its aim, and in my point of view, it's going nowhere now. It's just maybe the benefit of the people who are taking out the decisions for us, and I disagree with him. I highly disagree with this way of thinking. Because I have to say no to the idea of going on with the war, and the thought of our people still being kept underground in unbearable places is impossible for me.
These protests follow thousands of others massing in Tel Aviv on 26th as the Israeli Security Cabinet convened. Now, after the cabinet meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reiterated that Israel's Gaza offensive will continue. Let's in fact take a closer look at what Netanyahu had to say.
אנחנו באים עכשיו מישיבת קבינט, אז אני לא חושב שאני יכול להרחיב יותר מדי, אבל להגיד דבר אחד, זה התחיל בעזה וזה ייגמר בעזה. אנחנו לא נשאיר את המפלצות האלה שם, אנחנו נשחרר את כל חטופינו, אנחנו נדאג שעזה לא תהווה יותר איום על ישראל.
Meanwhile, Israel is under mounting international pressure to wrap up its Gaza campaign, with Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff reportedly saying that the U.S. president would host a meeting on post-war plans for the enclave. Moreover, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is also set to meet Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar in Washington. Joining us on the broadcast today is Professor Kobi Michael. He's a senior researcher at the INSS and Misgav Institute. He's joining us live from Israel. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX. We do know that Netanyahu's offensive in Gaza continues. It continues to mount in order to end the terror that Hamas has been striking in the hearts of the people of Israel. But meanwhile, we're seeing now Israelis also take to the streets and basically putting forth their concerns that this offensive might also harm the hostages who are located in the tunnels, who are still being held by Hamas. What is going on the ground?
What is going on the ground is the continuation of the operation, mainly the preparations towards the big and the more substantial phase of this operation. And actually the preparations of the IDF are taken in, I would say, two stages or two domains. The first one is to prepare the safe zones for the citizens that will be evacuated from this area, from the city of Gaza. And the second domain or level is the preparations of the forces themselves. And meanwhile, the IDF is there on the suburbs of the city, continues the operation and continue pressuring Hamas, hoping that at the end of the day it will lead to the cease of the war and the releasing of the hostages by negotiation, and not by the need to occupy the city of Gaza.
All right. Meanwhile, some of the families of the hostages are now claiming that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is sacrificing, quote unquote, sacrificing the hostages. And they're now demanding a deal to be struck with Hamas in order to secure urgent release of the hostages. What do you think will happen? Do you think Netanyahu will buckle to this pressure that is being mounted?
I think that the demonstrators are relying on an assumption that I'm not sure that it is an assumption that corresponds necessarily with the reality, because they assume that once Israel will say yes, then we have a deal, the hostages, all of them will be released and the war will be ceased under the conditions or the demands of Israel. But this is not the situation. The situation is that Hamas still refuses to come back to the negotiation table. They are making many tricks and a strategy. They use a strategy of deception. I do not believe that they will be willing to release all the hostages. And even when they say that they are willing to come back to the negotiation table, it doesn't mean that eventually it will be translated to to action. So I think that this assumption should be questioned, at least. And I think that Israel does the utmost efforts in order to reach the hostages, in order to release the hostages, be it by negotiation or be it by military operation. There is no doubt that the situation is very severe, very difficult, and there is no doubt, on the other hand, that by military operation we are risking, or we are adding risks to the life and to the safety and security of the hostages. But in the very same time, by continuing the negotiation without any end to negotiation, we are risking the life of the hostages as well. So this is a sort of a very complicated situation, and I think that Israel does the maximum that it can in order to realize eventually the objectives of the war, which include, of course, the releasing of the hostages.
Absolutely. Professor Michael, I request you to stay on with us. There's more news coming in. We're now learning that as Israelis continue